Hello beauties, welcome back to the vlog. This week we have been talking about mentoring. How do I choose a mentor? How do I know if I want a mentor? What is it? Yesterday we talked a little bit about professional development and that mentoring is a tool in the toolbox of professional development, but it's something that you want to be open to and ready to receive, that it's a reciprocal process, that both people can benefit from that interaction, and being open to feedback is a huge piece of it. And being able to accept that. Today I want to share a couple of lessons learned from 3 mentors that I've had in the past. All 3 of them were not mentors in that I sought them out to guide me or mentor me, but that our relationship that we built over time was that of a mentor-mentee. So the first person I'm going to talk about is when I was in college. There was a female businesswoman in Oregon who had spent her career in communications, and I came in to meet with them I was considering going to graduate school at the time, and I sat at the end of a long boardroom table, and the way that I met her was at the end of this long boardroom table, surrounded by people who were going to determine if I had the right stuff, so to speak, to continue on in one of the grad school programs I was considering. And it was a very interesting first interaction. And over the next several years, we ended up building a friendship from that first interaction. We liked each other right away, and sometimes that's a big piece of finding a mentor, is that you have a connection of some kind, you have some commonality, your personalities fit. I mean, there's a variety of things that make that a right fit. But she asked me a lot of really tough questions, which I liked. She didn't go easy on me in that initial conversation. And she also didn't patronize to me. She didn't presume that I didn't know certain things or that I knew more than I did. She just asked me and allowed me the chance to answer for myself, which was a big change and not something at the time that I had experienced. And over time, what she did was she allowed me the opportunity to think about some really good questions. And one of them that she asked me was, which side of the table do you want to sit on in your career? And I said, well, what do you mean, which side of the table do I want to sit on? And she said, do you want to be on the side of the table that gives money to people, or do you want to be on the side of the table that asks for money from people? And I said, well, I don't know. And she said, well, I would suggest that you think about that, because I was considering whether I wanted to go into nonprofit work, maybe go into academia, if I wanted to go into business. I just wasn't sure. And that question really helped me. And there were many questions that she asked me. So sometimes having someone who isn't afraid to ask great questions can make a really big difference. I had another mentor who really wanted to make sure that I had my personal life in order. And not in a way of guiding me in terms of, you know, who I dated and whether I had kids or not or any of that, but to make sure that I had really looked out for myself personally. Was I prepared financially? Did I have my own, had I thought about whether or not I wanted to own property, or did I have investments? Did I make sure that if I did date someone or marry them, that I was secure on my own? Which is really interesting because he was a customer of mine. He and his wife were customers of mine in one of the places that I worked, and he was also very religious. He was Mormon, and I'm not, and he had spent his whole career working in government, in particular providing things for the Navy, and we couldn't have been more different. And I met him as a customer, but he and his wife just had such a great thing going, and he had all these great ideas, and he had a couple of kids that were not super into business, and they lived in different places, and so it was really fun for us to talk about business. And he gave me a lot of great advice, but one of the biggest things was, don't forget that in business you have to take care of yourself, and if you don't have your own personal house in order, in whatever way that means, health, sleep, exercise, friendships, relationships, and so on, you're not going to be solid at work. And that was really a great thing to remember. It's very hard to do and keep balance, but it was really great advice. And then the last person I want to talk about today is someone that, and I miss all of these people, they've all passed on now, but someone who would call me every single week, unprompted, and leave me these, what I now think of with fondness, but at the time I found quite annoying voicemails. So I also met him through being a customer, but we knew each other from the same church and from a number of organizations we had volunteered in. And he was a self-made man. He had been a businessman. He had a great story. He told me that he had a family. He had I think 4 or 5 children. He had a family. He needed a job. He didn't have a lot of education, and he had to make sure that he had a way to provide for his family. And so he invented a type of business that no one had done before, and it was very successful. But he did it out of necessity. And he said, well, don't do what I do. Be specific. Have a plan. But it worked out in a huge way for him, right? So I would ask him a lot of questions about that. But one of his big things for me was that you have to be accountable to yourself and that you alone are responsible for your own success. I don't fully agree with that. I think there's a lot of people who have helped me get where I am. But I understand the intent of that. And he would leave me messages holding me accountable and asking me to be accountable to myself. Had I made excuses that week? Was I uncomfortable that week? Had I called the people I said I was going to call? Had I called the Mr. or Mrs. Big Deal person that I wanted to sell something to? If I had, how did it go? If I hadn't, why not? And he was actually a great boost to my confidence and helped me understand that all people are just people. And it didn't matter, as he put it, if they were the head of Coca-Cola or if they were the janitor in our building. Every single person was an opportunity to get connected to another person. So to recap for you, the first person asked me great questions that I had never been asked before and helped me think about what I really wanted. The second person reminded me that I have to have my personal house in order to succeed in business. You can't have one without the other. It's a great reminder. And the third is that you're not going to succeed unless you hold yourself accountable. No one can do the work for you. So tomorrow we're going to do our Thank You Thursday and talk some more about that. And then Friday we'll resume with mentoring. I'll see you tomorrow.